The billionaire found a drawing in his son's backpack and realized the art teacher had been his first love. The last thing Lucas Rowan expected to find in his son's backpack was the face of the woman who had haunted his dreams for 15 years. It was past midnight in his penthouse office, the Seattle skyline glittering below like scattered diamonds. Lucas had been reviewing quarterly reports when he noticed Noah's forgotten homework scattered across the marble kitchen counter. Being a single father meant these late-night discoveries were routine. Forgotten lunchboxes, permission slips, the occasional crayon melted in summer heat. But this drawing was different. Lucas held the paper with trembling fingers, his breath catching in his throat. The woman's face seemed to emerge from the page with startling clarity. Dark, wavy hair framing delicate features. Eyes that held depths he remembered drowning in during college nights that felt like lifetimes ago. In the bottom right corner, written in careful teacher's script, "Beautiful work, Noah, Miss M. Varela." Varela. The name hit him like a physical blow. Maya. His Maya. Lucas sank into the leather chair, the drawing clutched against his chest. 3 years of careful emotional armor began to crack. Since losing his wife Amanda to cancer, he'd built walls around his heart so high that even Noah sometimes felt like a stranger on the other side. Work had become his refuge. Bioengineering projects that demanded logic, precision, control. Things that made sense when nothing else did. He glanced toward Noah's bedroom door, where soft breathing indicated his 8-year-old son was lost in dreams. Noah, with his mother's gentle eyes and Lucas's stubborn determination, had been struggling lately. The boy who once chattered endlessly about robot designs and space exploration had grown quiet, withdrawn. The expensive tutors Lucas hired couldn't reach whatever wall Noah had built around himself. That's why Lucas had enrolled him at Riverside Creative Academy, a decision that felt foreign to a man who trusted numbers more than emotions. The school emphasized integrated arts education and emotional intelligence, concepts that made Lucas uncomfortable but seemed necessary for his son's well-being. He'd never attended a single parent meeting, never learned his son's teachers' names. He paid the fees, hired a driver, and trusted that expensive education would somehow heal what his own presence couldn't. Now, staring at this drawing, Lucas realized how foolish his distance had been. The woman Noah had drawn with such careful attention wasn't just any teacher. She was the woman Lucas had loved so completely in college that leaving her behind had felt like amputating part of his soul. The woman he'd abandoned when opportunity called from 3,000 miles away, too young and terrified to explain that following his dreams meant leaving his heart behind. Maya Varela, the girl who'd taught him that art wasn't just about creating beauty. It was about revealing truth. Who'd spent countless nights in his cramped dorm room, sketching his face by lamplight while he solved equations that would later make him millions. Who'd believed in his potential when he barely believed in himself. The girl he'd never had the courage to call when success finally came. The woman whose silence had taught him that some mistakes can't be forgiven with money or time. Lucas stood abruptly, pacing to the floor-to-ceiling windows. His reflection stared back. A man at 37 who'd gained everything he'd once dreamed of and lost everything that truly mattered. First Maya, then Amanda, and now potentially Noah's emotional connection to the world. But Noah had found something Lucas had lost. In Maya's classroom, his son had discovered joy again. The evidence was right there in the drawing. Careful shading, attention to detail, the kind of artistic love that only came from genuine inspiration. Lucas pressed his forehead against the cool glass, closing his eyes. Tomorrow, he would have to make a choice. He could continue his pattern of avoidance, pretending this discovery had never happened, or he could do something that terrified him more than any corporate takeover or medical diagnosis. He could face the woman he'd never stopped loving. The drawing fluttered to the floor as his hand shook. What if she hates me? He thought, his breath fogging the window. What if she doesn't? She had no idea that her past was about to walk through the classroom door in a $1,000 suit. Maya Varela stood before her third-grade art class, sunlight streaming through the windows of Riverside Creative Academy, watching 22 small faces concentrate on their self-portraits. The familiar smell of tempera paint and construction paper filled the air, a combination that had become more comforting to her than any expensive perfume. "Remember, artists," she said softly, moving between the desks with practiced grace. "You're not just drawing what you see in the mirror. You're showing us who you are inside." Noah Rowan looked up from his easel, paint smudged on his cheek, eyes bright with the kind of focus Maya rarely saw in children his age. "Miss Varela, what if the person inside is different from the person outside?" Maya paused, her heart catching. This boy, quiet, thoughtful Noah with his father's intelligent eyes and something indefinably sad in his small shoulders, had been asking questions like this since he'd transferred to her class 3 months ago. Questions that reminded her of conversations she'd had long ago, in a different life, with someone who saw the world in layers most people missed. "That's the most beautiful kind of art, Noah," she said, kneeling beside his desk. "When we're brave enough to show both." She glanced at his work, a self-portrait that somehow captured not just his physical features but a loneliness that made her chest tighten. In the background, he'd painted a tall figure in shadow, hand outstretched but not quite touching the boy's shoulder. "Who's that?" she asked gently. "My dad," Noah whispered. "He tries to be close, but sometimes I think he's scared of me." Maya's throat constricted. "Scared of you? Why would you think that?" "Because when he looks at me, sometimes he gets this expression like he's seeing a ghost, and then he gets really busy with work again." "Oh, sweet boy," Maya thought, her teacher's heart breaking a little more. She'd seen this before. Children carrying emotional weight that belonged to adults, trying to make sense of grief and distance they couldn't understand. "Can I tell you a secret?" Maya whispered conspiratorially. "Sometimes grown-ups get scared too. Not of you, but of how much they love you. Love can be scary when you've been hurt before." Noah considered this with the seriousness of a child wise beyond his years. "Were you ever scared of loving someone?" The question hit Maya like a physical blow. 15 years collapsed in an instant, and she was 20 again, standing in a college dorm room, watching Lucas Rowan pack his life into boxes while avoiding her eyes. The scholarship to MIT, the internship that would change everything, the promises to stay in touch that crumbled under the weight of distance and ambition. "Yes," she admitted quietly, "I was scared once, and I think the person I loved was scared too." "What happened?" Maya straightened, pushing the memories back into the carefully locked compartment where she kept them. "Sometimes people make choices that feel right at the time, but hurt people they care about. That's why forgiveness is so important, for others and for ourselves." Noah nodded solemnly, then returned to his painting, adding careful details to the shadowed figure. Maya watched him work, noting how his small hands moved with unexpected precision, how he layered colors with an instinctive understanding of light and shadow. Just like his father used to sketch, she thought, then froze. No, she was being ridiculous. Seattle had millions of people. The chances of— "Miss Varela," called Isabella from across the room. "My mom wants to know if you'll be at the parent-teacher conferences next week." "Of course," Maya replied automatically, her mind still spinning. She'd been teaching for 8 years, had worked with hundreds of students. The fact that this particular boy reminded her of someone from her past didn't mean anything. But as she walked to her desk, she found herself pulling out Noah's enrollment file. Father, Lucas Rowan. Mother, deceased. Guardian, same. Emergency contact, Harrison Corporate, LLC. Her hands trembled as she stared at the name. Lucas Rowan. Not Lucas Rowan like she'd been telling herself for months. Rowan, the boy who'd filled her college notebooks with equations and dreams. The man who'd disappeared into the world of bioengineering and left her behind with nothing but a voicemail that said he'd call when he got settled. He never called. Maya sank into her chair, the classroom suddenly feeling too small. All these months she'd been teaching his son. All these months Noah had been creating art that somehow captured the emotional distance she remembered seeing in Lucas's eyes when he was afraid of wanting something too much. "Miss Varela?" Noah appeared at her desk, his painting in hand. "Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Maya looked at the boy, really looked at him. Lucas's nose. Lucas's way of tilting his head when he was thinking, but softer somehow, more open. "I'm fine, sweetheart," she managed. "Your painting is beautiful." Noah beamed. "My dad says art is just for fun, but I think it's for showing people what's in your heart when you don't have words." Maya's breath caught. Those were almost exactly the words she'd said to Lucas during their last fight, when he'd called her art degree impractical, and she'd tried to explain why beauty mattered in a world of algorithms and profit margins. "Your dad said that?" she asked carefully. "Well, no," Noah admitted. "He doesn't really talk about art, but I think that's what he means when he looks at my drawings for a really long time before he puts them on the refrigerator." Maya's heart shattered and rebuilt itself in the same moment. Lucas was still there, underneath whatever walls he'd built. The boy who'd once spent hours watching her paint, who'd said her hands moved like they were writing poetry in color. The dismissal bell rang and children began gathering their backpacks. Maya watched Noah pack his supplies with the same methodical care she remembered Lucas applying to everything he touched. "Noah," she called softly, "would you like me to send your self-portrait home with a note for your father? I think he'd like to know how talented you are." Noah's face lit up. "Really? He gets so busy with work stuff. But maybe if it's from you." Maya's heart clenched. "I'll make sure he knows how special you are." As Noah walked toward the door, he paused. "Miss Varela, do you think people can get second chances, like if they made a mistake when they were younger?" Maya stared at this 8-year-old boy who somehow carried wisdom beyond his years, who'd unknowingly become a bridge between her past and present. "I think," she said slowly, "that the best stories are about second chances." Noah smiled and walked out, leaving Maya alone with the weight of a name she'd never forgotten and a decision that would change everything. Lucas Rowan was back in her life. The question was, what was she going to do about it? Lucas had read the same email 17 times and his hands were still shaking. "Dear Mr. Rowan, I hope this message finds you well. I'm writing to discuss Noah's exceptional progress in art class. His creativity and emotional depth are remarkable for his age. I believe a brief meeting would be beneficial to discuss how we can continue nurturing his artistic talents. I'm available for a conference at your earliest convenience. Best regards, Monsieur Varela, art teacher, Riverside Creative Academy." It was professional, polite, perfectly appropriate for a teacher reaching out to a parent. But Lucas knew Maya's handwriting, like he knew his own heartbeat, and beneath the formal typed words, he could almost see the tremor in her fingers as she'd crafted each careful sentence. Monsieur Varela, not Maya. She was protecting herself, maintaining distance even as she reached across 15 years of silence. Lucas sat in his downtown office, the Seattle rain painting abstract patterns on the floor-to-ceiling windows. He'd built this empire, Harrison Biotech, 300 employees, contracts with pharmaceutical giants, from nothing. He could negotiate million-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, could present to boards of directors who held the power to change lives. But he couldn't figure out how to respond to a simple email from his son's teacher. His son's teacher, the woman who'd once traced constellation patterns on his chest, while he explained the science behind genetic sequencing. The woman who'd painted his portrait on canvases he'd been too young and stupid to keep when he'd moved across the country. "Mr. Rowan?" His assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "You have the Portland meeting in 10 minutes. Cancel it," Lucas said without looking up from his screen. "Sir, it's the final presentation for the... Reschedule everything today. I need to..." He paused, his throat tight. "I need to pick up my son from school." For the first time in 3 years, Lucas Rowan was going to Riverside Creative Academy, not to drop off permission slips or write another check, to see her. The elementary school buzzed with the controlled chaos of dismissal time. Lucas stood in the parking lot, watching streams of children pour from the building like colorful confetti. He'd changed from his usual suit into dark jeans and a casual button-down, though he wasn't sure why. Maybe because the Lucas that Maya had known wouldn't have worn ties to pick up his son. Maybe because he wanted to remember what it felt like to be human instead of just successful. "Dad?" Noah's voice cut through his thoughts. His son stood a few feet away, backpack slung over one shoulder, expression puzzled. "What are you doing here?" "I thought I'd drive you home today," Lucas said, his voice rougher than intended. "We could stop for ice cream." Noah's eyes widened. "Really? But it's Tuesday. You never pick me up on Tuesdays." The innocent words hit Lucas like a physical blow. When had he become the kind of father whose presence was surprising? When had his love become so predictable that deviation felt like a gift? "Maybe it's time I started picking you up more often," Lucas said quietly. They walked toward the building, Noah chattering about his day with an enthusiasm Lucas hadn't heard in months. As they reached the main entrance, Lucas's steps slowed. Through the glass doors he could see classroom doors lining the hallway, each one decorated with student artwork and cheerful signs. Room 127, Ms. Varela, art class. His heart hammered against his ribs. "Dad?" Noah tugged at his sleeve. "Are you coming? I want to show you the painting I finished today." Lucas nodded, following his son through doors that felt like a portal to a past he'd never properly grieved. The hallway smelled like tempera paint and childhood dreams, so different from the sterile efficiency of his office building. They stopped in front of room 127. Through the open door, Lucas could see her. Maya stood at the back of the classroom cleaning paintbrushes at a small sink. She wore a flowing skirt the color of autumn leaves and a cream sweater that had tiny paint stains on the sleeves. Her dark hair was pulled back in a loose bun, the same way she'd worn it during late-night study sessions in college. She was 35 now, but she moved with the same graceful confidence that had first caught his attention in Professor Morrison's engineering ethics class. The same woman who'd asked challenging questions about the responsibility of innovation, who'd made him think about the human cost of progress. "Miss Varela," Noah called out, bounding into the classroom. "My dad came to pick me up today." Maya turned, and for one suspended moment time collapsed. Her eyes met Lucas's across the classroom, and he saw recognition flicker across her face like lightning. Her hand tightened on the paintbrush she was holding. "Noah," she said softly, her voice barely controlled. "How wonderful." She looked at Lucas, and he saw the same storm of emotions he felt churning in his own chest. Surprise, pain, something that might have been hope if they were brave enough to name it. "Mr. Rowan," she said formally, though her voice trembled slightly. "Thank you for coming." Lucas stepped into the classroom, feeling like he was walking through a minefield of memories. "I received your email." "I see." Maya set down the paintbrush with deliberate care. "Noah has been exceptional in class. Very talented." They stood there, 20 feet apart, speaking in careful pleasantries while their history thrummed between them like a live wire. Noah, oblivious to the tension, gathered his artwork from his cubby. "Dad, look." Noah held up a painting of a sunset over water, the colors bleeding into each other with surprising sophistication. "Miss Varela taught me how to make the sky look like it's moving." Lucas took the painting, his hands trembling slightly. "It's beautiful, son. Miss Varela says art is about showing feelings, not just copying what you see." Noah continued proudly. "She says the best artists paint what's in their hearts." Maya's breath caught audibly. Lucas looked at her, and for a moment her professional mask slipped. He saw the young woman who'd taught him that engineering could be beautiful, that solving problems was a form of art when you cared about the people your solutions would help. "Your son is very wise," Maya said quietly, her eyes never leaving Lucas's face. "He sees things differently than most children. He gets that from his mother," Lucas said automatically, then realized his mistake. Maya's face went pale. "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "I didn't mean—" "It's fine," Maya interrupted, but her voice was tight. "I know about your loss. I'm sorry for your grief." The formal words hung between them like a wall. Lucas wanted to tell her that his grief was complicated, that losing Amanda had been devastating but different from the loss he'd carried for 15 years, that Amanda had been a good woman who'd loved him deeply, but that she'd also known there was a part of his heart that had never fully healed. Instead, he said, "Thank you." Noah looked between them, his child's intuition picking up on the strange tension. "Miss Varela, are you okay? You look sad." Maya forced a smile. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just thinking about old friends." Lucas's heart clenched. "Maya, we should schedule that meeting," she interrupted, her professional mask sliding back into place, "to discuss Noah's progress." "Yes," Lucas said, understanding that she needed the safety of formality. "When would be convenient? Tomorrow after school? We could meet in the conference room." "I'll be there." Maya nodded, then turned back to her cleaning. Dismissal. But as Lucas took Noah's hand to leave, she spoke again. "Lucas?" Her voice was barely a whisper. He turned back, hope flaring in his chest. It's good to see you again." The words were simple, but they carried the weight of 15 years. Lucas wanted to tell her that seeing her was like breathing again after holding his breath for decades, that watching her with Noah had shown him what his son had been missing. Not just artistic guidance, but the kind of gentle wisdom that came from someone who understood that beauty mattered as much as success. Instead, he said, "You too, Maya. You too." As they walked to the parking lot, Noah skipped beside him, chattering about paintbrushes and color theory. But Lucas's mind was spinning with the impossibility of it all. Maya was here. She was real. She was his son's teacher. And tomorrow they would sit in a conference room and pretend to discuss art education, while their hearts remembered how to break and heal at the same time. Tomorrow, he would have to find words for 15 years of silence. But tonight, he would dream of paint-stained fingers and the woman who'd taught him that love was the most beautiful equation of all. Maya had rearranged the papers on the conference table 6 times, and her coffee had gone cold an hour ago. She sat in the small meeting room at Riverside Creative Academy, watching the parking lot through the window, her heart hammering against her ribs like a caged bird. At 3:47 p.m., she'd seen Lucas's sleek black sedan pull into the visitor's space. At 3:52, she'd watched him sit in the driver's seat, hands gripping the steering wheel, clearly gathering courage. It was now 4:03 p.m., and he still hadn't come inside. Maybe he won't come, she thought, and couldn't decide if the idea brought relief or devastation. Maya had barely slept last night. After 15 years of wondering, of building Lucas into either a villain or a saint depending on her mood, seeing him in her classroom had shattered every carefully constructed narrative. He was neither the heartless opportunist she'd imagined in her angriest moments, nor the tragic hero of her most forgiving fantasies. He was just Lucas. Older, more guarded, carrying grief in the set of his shoulders, but still the man who'd once stayed up until 3 a.m. helping her understand organic chemistry because she'd been struggling and too proud to ask for help. The conference room door opened, and Maya's breath caught. Lucas stood in the doorway looking as nervous as she felt. He'd changed into the same dark jeans and button-down from yesterday, and Maya realized with a pang that he was trying to be the person she'd known, not the billionaire he'd become. "I'm sorry I'm late," he said quietly. "I was sitting in the parking lot trying to figure out what to say." Maya gestured to the chair across from her, noting how he hesitated before sitting down. The conference table felt both too wide and not wide enough, a barrier and an inadequate shield all at once. "Thank you for coming," she said, her teacher voice steady even as her hands trembled. "I really do want to discuss Noah's progress." Lucas nodded, but his eyes never left her face. "He talks about you constantly. Your class is the only thing that gets him excited about school. He's a remarkable boy," Maya said softly. "Sensitive, intuitive. He sees the world in ways that most adults have forgotten how to see. Like his teacher, apparently." The words hung between them, loaded with history. Maya felt her professional composure beginning to crack. "Lucas, Maya, I need to." They spoke at the same time, then fell into uncomfortable silence. Maya clasped her hands together to stop their shaking. "You first," Lucas said. Maya took a shaky breath. "I need to know why you never called." The question she'd carried for 15 years spilled out before she could stop it. All pretense of discussing Noah's artwork crumbled, leaving them facing the raw truth of what this meeting was really about. Lucas's face went pale. "Maya, Not the official reason," she interrupted, her voice gaining strength. "Not the scholarship or the internship or the incredible opportunity. I need to know why you couldn't pick up the phone. Why you left me a voicemail saying you'd call when you got settled and then nothing. 15 years of nothing." Lucas ran his hands through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made Maya's chest ache. "Because I was a coward," he said finally. "Because I was 22 and terrified, and I thought if I called you, I'd get on the next plane back to you and throw away everything I'd worked for. You thought I'd make you choose." "No." Lucas met her eyes, his own filled with regret. "I thought I'd choose you, and I was terrified that if I did, I'd spend the rest of my life wondering what I'd given up. I was terrified that I'd resent you for it eventually. I couldn't bear the thought of loving you and resenting you at the same time." Maya felt tears building behind her eyes. "So instead you just disappeared. You made the choice for both of us." "Yes." Lucas's voice cracked. "The worst decision I've ever made. I've regretted it every day for 15 years. Every day?" Maya's voice was barely a whisper. "Every single day. Even during my marriage to Amanda, even when I was happy, there was always this hole where you used to be." Amanda knew. She never said anything, but she knew. Maya closed her eyes, processing the pain in his words. Were you happy with her?" "Yes," Lucas said without hesitation. "Not the same way I was happy with you, but yes. Amanda was good to me. She loved me completely, even the broken parts. She gave me Noah. She made me a better man than I was when I left you. But," Lucas's laugh was hollow, "but she wasn't you, and I think part of me always felt like I was living a life that was meant for someone else, like I was playing a role instead of being myself." Maya opened her eyes, seeing the man across from her with new clarity. "Is that why Noah seems so distant from you? Because you're still playing a role?" Lucas flinched, as if she'd slapped him. "What do you mean?" "He draws you standing in shadows, Lucas. Always reaching but never quite touching. He thinks you're afraid of him because when you look at him you see a ghost." "I see Amanda," Lucas whispered. "Sometimes when he laughs or when he gets that determined look, I see her, and I remember that she's gone, that I failed to save her, that all my money and connections and resources couldn't keep her alive. Maya's heart broke for him, for Noah, for the family that grief had fractured. But he doesn't need you to save him, Lucas. He needs you to see him, really see him. Not as Amanda's ghost or your guilt or your second chance at something, just as Noah. How do I do that? Lucas's voice was raw with vulnerability. How do I be the father he needs when I'm still figuring out how to be the man I want to be? Maya reached across the table before she could stop herself, covering his hand with hers. The contact sent electricity through her entire body. 15 years collapsed into nothing. You start by being honest, she said softly. With him, with yourself, with... She hesitated, then took the leap. With me. Lucas turned his hand palm up, his fingers intertwining with hers. What do you want me to be honest about? Why you're really here. This isn't about Noah's art education. Lucas's thumb traced across her knuckles, the gesture so achingly familiar that Maya had to bite her lip to keep from crying. I'm here because seeing you again feels like coming back to life, he said quietly. I'm here because for the first time in 15 years, I feel like myself, instead of some successful stranger wearing my face. I'm here because my 8-year-old son recognized something in you that I spent decades trying to forget. Lucas, I'm here because I never stopped loving you, Maya, even when I should have, even when it wasn't fair to Amanda or to you or to anyone. I never stopped. The confession hung between them like a bridge neither was sure they could cross. Maya felt tears spilling down her cheeks. I never stopped either, she whispered. I tried. God knows I tried. I dated other people. I built a life. I convinced myself I was over you. But then Noah walked into my classroom and he had your eyes and your way of thinking, and it was like the universe was laughing at me. They sat in silence, hands clasped across the conference table, letting 15 years of unspoken truth settle between them. Where does this leave us? Lucas asked finally. Maya pulled her hand back, immediately missing the warmth of his touch. I don't know. You're my student's father, I'm his teacher. There are boundaries, ethical considerations. Forget about that for a minute, Lucas said urgently. If Noah wasn't in the equation, if we were just two people who found each other again, what would you want? Maya looked at him, really looked, at the lines around his eyes that spoke of loss and responsibility, at the way his hands moved when he was nervous, exactly the same as 20 years ago, at the hope and fear warring in his expression. I'd want to try again, she admitted. I'd want to see if what we had was real, or just the fantasy of two kids who didn't know how hard love could be. Lucas's face lit up with something that looked like relief. So we try. Carefully. Slowly. We figure out how to do this right this time. What about Noah? We let him lead, Lucas said. He already loves you. He's the one who brought us back together, even if he doesn't know it. Maybe he's exactly what we both need to remember how to trust again. Maya nodded, feeling something like hope unfurling in her chest for the first time in years. They were going to try again, 15 years later, with a beautiful, complicated boy as their bridge back to each other. 3 days later, Maya found herself standing outside Grind Coffee on Pine Street, second-guessing everything. The text from Lucas had been simple. Would you like to get coffee after school? Somewhere we can talk without conference tables between us. She'd stared at her phone for 20 minutes before typing back, yes. Now watching Seattle's afternoon drizzle paint watercolor patterns on the cafe windows, Maya wondered if she was making a terrible mistake. Professional boundaries existed for good reasons. Parents and teachers weren't supposed to have history that made their hearts race when they accidentally brushed hands reaching for the same pen. But then she saw Lucas through the glass, sitting at a corner table with 2 steaming mugs in front of him, and all her logical arguments crumbled. He'd remembered that she liked her coffee with oat milk and cinnamon. Maya pushed through the door, the familiar chime mixing with the low hum of conversation and the hiss of the espresso machine. The cafe smelled like roasted beans and possibility, intimate and safe in a way that the sterile school conference room hadn't been. Hi, Lucas said softly as she approached, standing to pull out her chair. The gesture was so naturally courteous, so perfectly him, that Maya felt her guard dropping despite her best intentions. Hi, she replied, sliding into the seat across from him. The table was small, forcing them to sit closer than professional distance would normally allow. Thank you for the coffee. I wasn't sure if you still... I do. Maya lifted the mug to her lips, inhaling the cinnamon-laced steam. Some things don't change. Lucas's eyes softened. No, they don't. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both acutely aware that they were crossing a line simply by being here together. Not teacher and parent. Not even old friends catching up. Something more fragile and dangerous than either. "How's Noah adjusting to his new art project?" Maya asked, grasping for safe ground. "He's been painting every evening," Lucas said, his face lighting up with genuine pride. "Last night he showed me this incredible piece. A tree with roots that turn into roads, branches that become buildings. He said it was about how everything is connected, even when it doesn't look like it." Maya's heart squeezed. He's processing something deep. Children often use art to work through concepts they can't verbalize yet. What do you think he's processing? Maya considered her words carefully. Change, maybe. The idea that people can come back into your life unexpectedly. That connections can be stronger than distance or time. Lucas's coffee cup paused halfway to his lips. "Are we still talking about Noah?" "I don't know," Maya admitted. "Maybe we're talking about all of us." The honesty hung between them like a bridge neither was quite ready to cross. Lucas set down his cup, his fingers drumming against the table in the nervous pattern Maya remembered from college study sessions. "Maya, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest." "Okay. Do you think I'm being selfish? Wanting to explore this, whatever this is between us, when Noah is involved?" Maya studied his face, seeing the genuine worry there. "Are you asking as Lucas the father, or Lucas the man?" "Both, I guess." "As Lucas the father," Maya said carefully, "I think you want what's best for your son. And what's best for Noah is having adults in his life who are authentic, who care about him genuinely, who don't hide behind roles and pretenses." "And as Lucas the man?" Maya's breath caught. "As Lucas the man, I think you're terrified that you'll hurt people you care about again, that you'll make the wrong choice and lose something precious." Lucas leaned forward, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "I am terrified, but not of making the wrong choice this time. I'm terrified of not being brave enough to make any choice at all. What would bravery look like? Honestly, taking this one day at a time, getting to know you again, the woman you've become, not just the girl I remember, letting you get to know who I am now, including all the ways I've been broken and tried to heal." Maya felt her heart doing dangerous things in her chest. "That sounds reasonable." "Reasonable?" Lucas's mouth quirked up in the half-smile that had once made her forget about studying entirely. "Not romantic or passionate or any of the things I used to promise you. We're not 20 anymore, Lucas. Romance and passion are lovely, but they don't mean much without foundation, without trust. And do you think we could build trust again?" Maya looked around the coffee shop, at the young couple sharing a slice of cake, the businessman typing furiously on his laptop, the elderly woman reading a paperback novel. Normal people living normal lives, making normal choices about love and risk and second chances. "I think," she said slowly, "that trust is something you prove, not something you promise. And I think I'd like to see you try to prove it." Lucas's entire body seemed to exhale with relief. "So we take it slow? We're careful. We put Noah first." "We put Noah first," Maya agreed. "And we're honest with each other. If this doesn't work, if it gets complicated or messy or starts affecting him negatively, we stop," Lucas finished. "We go back to being just his teacher and his father. Can you do that? If it comes to that?" Lucas was quiet for a long moment, his fingers tracing patterns on the condensation of his coffee cup. "I don't know, but I know I have to be willing to try, or we shouldn't start at all." Maya nodded, surprised by the maturity in his answer. The Lucas she'd known in college had been passionate but impulsive, prone to grand gestures that felt romantic, but often lacked practical consideration. This version of him, thoughtful, careful, willing to acknowledge his own limitations, was someone she could maybe trust with her heart again. "So what does taking it slow look like?" she asked. "Coffee dates," Lucas said with a small smile. "Conversations where we actually talk about our lives, our work, our dreams. Maybe the occasional dinner when Noah's with his babysitter. Getting to know each other as the people we are now, not just the people we used to be." "And Noah? We let him set the pace there too. If he wants to show you his room, his toys, his collection of rocks shaped like animals, we let him. But we don't force a relationship. We don't pretend to be something we're not." Maya felt something tight in her chest beginning to loosen. "You've really thought about this." "I've had 3 sleepless nights to think about it," Lucas admitted. "Maya, I meant what I said in that conference room. I never stopped loving you. But I also know that the love I felt at 22 was different from what I'm capable of now. I want to find out what love looks like between us at 35 and 37, with all our scars and wisdom and baggage, even if it's messier than what we had before, especially if it's messier, because messy means real, and I'm tired of living a life that feels like I'm acting in someone else's story. Maya reached across the table, letting her fingers brush against his. Okay, Lucas Rowan, let's take it slow. Let's be careful. Let's see what happens when two people who used to love each other try to figure out if they can love each other again. Lucas turned his hand palm up, letting their fingers intertwine properly. Should we start with the basics? Like, what's your favorite color now? Maya laughed, the sound surprising her with its lightness. Still blue, but deeper blues now. Navy, midnight, the color of the sky just before dawn. What about you? Green, Lucas said without hesitation. The exact shade of your eyes when you're concentrating on a painting. Maya's breath caught. Lucas, too much? No, she said softly. Just honest. I forgot how honest you could be. I forgot how beautiful you look when you smile. They sat there, hands linked across a small table in a crowded coffee shop, taking the first tentative steps towards something that felt both completely new and achingly familiar. Outside, Seattle drizzled its blessing on second chances. Inside, two people who had loved and lost each other began the delicate work of falling in love again. Noah knew something had changed the moment his father picked him up from school with a genuine smile. It wasn't the polite smile Lucas wore during parent-teacher conferences, or the tired smile he managed after long days at the office. This was different, lighter, like someone had opened a window in a room that had been closed for too long. How was art class today? Lucas asked as they drove through downtown Seattle, and Noah noticed that his father's voice had changed too. Less careful, more curious. Really good, Noah said, buckling his seatbelt and studying his father's profile. Miss Varela taught us about negative space. You know, how the empty parts of a painting are just as important as the filled parts. Lucas's hands tightened almost imperceptibly on the steering wheel. That sounds profound. Dad? Noah tilted his head, the same way he did when he was trying to solve a particularly tricky math problem. Are you and Miss Varela friends? The question hung in the air between them. Lucas glanced at his son in the rearview mirror, and Noah saw something flicker across his father's face. Surprise, maybe, or the kind of nervousness adults got when they thought they were hiding something but weren't very good at it. Why do you ask? Because yesterday when you came to pick me up, you both looked, I don't know, like you recognized each other. Like when you see someone in the grocery store and you can't remember where you know them from except you did remember. Lucas pulled into their driveway, a modern house in Queen Anne that Noah had never quite felt was home, despite living there for 3 years. Too big, too quiet, too full of spaces that echoed with things nobody said. Miss Varela and I, we knew each other a long time ago, Lucas said carefully, turning off the engine. Before you were born, before I met your mom. Noah unbuckled his seatbelt, but didn't get out of the car. This felt like one of those important conversations adults usually tried to have without him. Were you friends? Lucas was quiet for a long moment, staring at the steering wheel. We were more than friends. Like you loved her? Another pause. Yes, Noah. I loved her very much. Noah processed this information with the serious consideration he applied to everything that mattered. What happened? I made a mistake, Lucas said quietly. I was young and scared, and I thought I had to choose between loving her and chasing my dreams. So I chose my dreams and left her behind. That was dumb. Lucas's laugh was sudden and genuine. Yes, it was. Very dumb. Do you still love her? The question was so direct, so innocent in its honesty that Lucas felt his chest tighten. Noah had always had this gift, cutting straight through adult complications to the heart of things. I think I do, Lucas admitted. But it's complicated, buddy. A lot of time has passed. We're different people now. Noah finally climbed out of the car, but instead of heading toward the house, he sat on the front steps, clearly expecting his father to join him. Lucas followed, settling beside his son on the concrete steps that were still warm from the afternoon sun. Dad, can I tell you something? Always. I think Miss Varela is sad sometimes, like underneath happy, the way you get sad sometimes when you think I'm not looking. Lucas's breath caught. What makes you think that? The way she paints, Noah said matter-of-factly. She teaches us to put our feelings in our colors, right? Well, she does this thing where she'll be showing us something, and she'll add these little touches of blue or gray that make the painting beautiful but also lonely, like she's painting missing pieces. The observation was so perceptive so achingly accurate that Lucas felt tears prick at his eyes. When had his 8-year-old son become so wise? And you know what else? Noah continued, swinging his legs off the edge of the step. Ever since you started picking me up from school, she's been using more yellow in her demonstrations. Yellow and warm orange. Happy colors. Noah, I think she still loves you too, Dad. I think that's why she looks at you the way she does. Like she's trying to figure out if you're real or just someone she dreamed about. Lucas stared at his son, this remarkable little person who saw the world with an artist's eye and a poet's heart. How did you get so smart about feelings? Noah shrugged. Miss Varela says art is just feelings with colors, and Mom used to say that love is just friendship with deeper colors, so I pay attention to the colors. The mention of Amanda hit Lucas like it always did, a sweet ache that had softened over time, but never fully disappeared. Your mom was very wise. Yeah, she was. But Dad? Yeah? I think Mom would want you to be happy. Really happy, not just okay happy. And I think Miss Varela makes you really happy. Lucas wrapped his arm around his son, pulling him close. What makes you think that? Because when you talk about her, your voice gets the same tone it had when you used to tell me stories about Mom, like you're talking about someone who makes the world make sense. The simple truth of it took Lucas's breath away. Out of the mouths of babes. How would you feel? Lucas asked carefully. If Miss Varela and I spent some time together, outside of school, I mean, as friends. Noah was quiet for a moment, his 8-year-old mind working through the implications. Would that mean she might come over sometimes, like for dinner or to see my room? Maybe if you wanted her to. Would you be happier? I think I might be. Would she be happier? Lucas thought about Maya's face in the coffee shop, the way her guard had dropped when she laughed, the lightness in her voice when she'd agreed to take things slow. I think she might be too. Noah nodded decisively. Then I think it's a good idea. But Dad? What, buddy? Don't mess it up this time, okay? Because I really like her, and I don't want her to go away. Lucas felt his heart crack open a little more. I'm going to do everything I can to not mess it up. But Noah, you need to understand. Even if Miss Varela and I become closer, she'll still be your teacher first. And if things don't work out between us, that doesn't change how much she cares about you as her student. I know, Noah said confidently, but it's going to work out. How can you be so sure? Noah grinned, the expression so full of childish certainty that Lucas almost believed anything was possible. Because you both paint the same kind of lonely, Dad. And Miss Varela says that when two people paint the same emotions, they're speaking the same language. You just have to be brave enough to show each other your canvases. Lucas stared at his son, wondering when Noah had become the wisest person in his life. You know what? Lucas said, standing and offering Noah his hand. I think we should invite Miss Varela over for dinner this weekend. What do you think? Noah jumped up, his entire face lighting up. Really? Can we make that pasta thing Mom used to make? The one with the fancy cheese? Absolutely. We'll make it perfect. As they walked toward the house, Noah chattering excitedly about menu planning and which of his paintings he wanted to show Maya, Lucas felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Hope. Pure, uncomplicated hope. Sometimes the best relationship advice comes from 8-year-olds who see the world in colors and understand that love is just friendship, painted in deeper hues. Maya stood on Lucas's doorstep, holding a bottle of wine and questioning every decision that had led her to this moment. The house was beautiful. Modern lines softened by warm lighting, a garden that spoke of careful attention rather than hired landscapers. Through the large windows she could see Noah setting the dining table with the serious concentration of a child trying to get everything perfect. Before she could ring the doorbell, the front door swung open, revealing Lucas in dark jeans and a navy sweater that made his eyes look almost gray. His hair was slightly mussed as if he'd been running his hands through it, and there was a small flower handprint on his shoulder. You look nervous, Maya said, smiling despite her own anxiety. Terrified, Lucas admitted, stepping aside to let her in. Noah has been planning this dinner like a military operation. He's rearranged the dining room 3 times and insisted we use the fancy plates that haven't seen daylight since Amanda's last birthday. The mention of his late wife should have felt awkward, but instead it felt honest, like Lucas was learning to carry his history without hiding from it. Miss Varela! Noah's voice rang out from the kitchen, followed by the sound of running feet. He appeared in the hallway, wearing a button-down shirt that was slightly too big and a grin that could have powered the entire house. You came. Of course I came, Maya said, crouching down to his level. I wouldn't miss dinner with my favorite artist. Noah beamed, then grabbed her hand. Come see what we made. Dad let me help with everything, and I only dropped the cheese once. Lucas followed them into the kitchen, and Maya felt her breath catch. The space was warm and lived in, nothing like the sterile perfection she'd expected from a billionaire's home. There were Noah's drawings covering the refrigerator, a coffee mug with a chip in the handle sitting on the counter, and the lingering smell of garlic and herbs that spoke of a meal made with love rather than hired help. We made fettuccine alfredo, Noah announced proudly, pointing to a pot simmering on the stove. It was Mom's recipe. Dad had to call Grandma Helen to remember how much cream to use. Maya watched Lucas's face as Noah spoke about Amanda so naturally, saw the way grief and gratitude mingled in his expression. There was pain there, but not the sharp-edged kind that cut people off from connection. This was the softer ache of love that had transformed into treasured memory. It smells incredible, Maya said truthfully. What can I do to help? Nothing, Noah said firmly. Dad said guests don't work, but you can watch us finish. Dad's been trying to flip the garlic bread without burning it for like 10 minutes. I am not burning the garlic bread, Lucas protested, but his smile was easy, unguarded in a way Maya had never seen before. I'm achieving the perfect level of golden brown. That's what you said about the first batch, Noah pointed out with 8-year-old logic. The one we fed to the neighbor's dog. Maya laughed, settling onto one of the kitchen stools to watch the easy banter between father and son. This was a side of Lucas she'd never seen. Playful, slightly chaotic, completely present. The driven, intense young man she'd known in college was still there, but softened by parenthood and loss into someone more human. Dad used to be really bad at cooking, Noah confided to Maya, while Lucas protested in the background. When Mom first got sick, he tried to make pancakes and they looked like hockey pucks. Mom laughed so hard she cried. Lucas's hands stilled on the oven door, and Maya saw the moment when memory threatened to overwhelm him. Without thinking, she reached out and touched his arm gently. Amanda sounds like she had a wonderful sense of humor, Maya said softly. She did, Lucas said, his voice thick with emotion. She would have loved this, watching Noah boss us both around in the kitchen. I'm not bossy, Noah said indignantly. I'm supervisory. Miss Varela, tell him there's a difference. There absolutely is, Maya agreed solemnly. Supervisory people make sure everything turns out perfectly. Bossy people just like telling others what to do. See? Noah said triumphantly to his father. Miss Varela understands. They moved to the dining room, where Noah had indeed used the fancy china and arranged the table with the kind of careful attention that made Maya's heart squeeze. There were candles that flickered softly, napkins folded into shapes that were probably supposed to be flowers, and a small vase containing daisies that looked suspiciously like they'd been picked from the backyard. This is beautiful, Noah, Maya said, and meant it. You've thought of everything. Dinner conversation flowed easier than Maya had expected. Noah dominated the early part of the meal, chattering about school and his latest art projects. But gradually the conversation deepened. Lucas asked about Maya's teaching, and she found herself telling stories about her students, about the moment when a shy child suddenly bloomed with confidence, or when a struggling artist finally found their voice. You really love what you do, Lucas observed, watching her face as she spoke. I do, Maya said. It's not what I thought I'd be doing when I was 25, but sometimes life takes you exactly where you need to be. What did you think you'd be doing? Noah asked, twirling pasta around his fork with serious concentration. Maya glanced at Lucas, seeing understanding in his eyes. I thought I'd be painting in galleries, maybe traveling to show my work in different cities. I had these big dreams about being a famous artist. What happened to those dreams? Lucas asked quietly. Maya considered her answer carefully. They changed. I realized that teaching children to find their artistic voice was more fulfilling than trying to make mine heard in crowded galleries. I get to watch creativity bloom every single day. That's worth more than any review in an art magazine. But do you miss it? Lucas pressed gently. The painting for yourself, I mean? Sometimes, Maya admitted. But I paint at home, in my little studio apartment, not for shows or sales, just for me, for the joy of it. Noah perked up. Could I see your paintings sometime? The ones you make just for you? Maya felt her heart skip. Would you like to? Yeah, Dad has sketchbooks full of drawings he thinks nobody knows about. Maybe you could show each other your secret art. Lucas nearly choked on his wine. Noah, What? You do? I've seen them when you leave them on the kitchen counter. You draw buildings and bridges and sometimes... Noah paused, glancing between his father and Maya with the too perceptive eyes of a child who'd been watching adults navigate complicated emotions. Sometimes you draw faces. The silence that followed was charged with unspoken questions. Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks as she wondered whose face Noah meant, while Lucas looked like he wanted to disappear into his chair. Art is personal, Maya said finally, saving them all from the awkwardness. Sometimes we create things that are just for ourselves, and that's okay too. But sharing is good too, right? Noah asked. That's what you always say in class, that art is about connecting with other people. Yes, Maya said softly, looking directly at Lucas. Sharing can be very good, when you trust someone enough to show them something you've created from your heart. Lucas met her gaze, and in that moment, Maya saw the young man who'd once stayed up all night sketching her hands while she slept, who'd filled margins of textbooks with tiny portraits of her profile. Maybe, Lucas said quietly, we could share our secret art sometime, all of us. Noah clapped his hands together. Yes, we could have an art night, like a show and tell but for grown-ups too. As they cleared the dishes together, Noah insisting on helping despite Maya's protests that guests don't work, she found herself marveling at how natural this felt. The three of them moving around the kitchen with easy coordination, Noah chattering about his latest sculpture project, while Lucas and Maya exchanged glances full of possibility. When Noah excused himself to brush his teeth, promising to show Maya his room afterward, Lucas and Maya found themselves alone in the kitchen for the first time all evening. Thank you, Lucas said quietly, loading plates into the dishwasher. For being so wonderful with him, for making this feel like a family, Maya finished, then immediately blushed at her boldness. Lucas turned to face her fully. Yeah, like a family. I'd forgotten what that felt like. They stood there in the warm kitchen, the sounds of Noah getting ready for bed echoing from upstairs, and Maya felt something shift between them. Not the careful dance they'd been doing for weeks, but something deeper, more real. Lucas, she said softly. Yeah, this feels right. Being here with you and Noah, it feels like... She searched for the words. Like coming home. Lucas reached for her hands, intertwining their fingers the way they had in the coffee shop, but with more certainty this time. For me too, he said. For me too. Upstairs, Noah finished brushing his teeth and smiled at his reflection in the mirror. His plan was working perfectly. 2 weeks after the dinner that changed everything, Maya found herself standing in Lucas's home office at 9 p.m., staring at sketches that took her breath away. You kept drawing me, she whispered, her fingers hovering over a charcoal portrait dated just 6 months ago. Her face gazed back from the paper, older than the college girl he'd once known, but rendered with such tenderness that her heart ached. Lucas stood behind her, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his body. I never stopped, he admitted quietly. Even during my marriage, even when I tried to convince myself you were just a memory, my hands remembered your face better than my mind remembered my reasons for leaving. Maya turned to face him, tears threatening to spill. Lucas, I know it's probably weird, he said quickly, running a hand through his hair in the nervous gesture she'd come to love again. Drawing someone who wasn't in my life anymore. Amanda knew. She never said anything, but she knew. She was gracious about it in a way I didn't deserve. Maya reached up and touched his cheek gently. She loved you. All of you, including the parts that still belong to your past. How can you be so understanding about this? Maya smiled through her tears. Because I did the same thing. Different medium, but I never stopped painting scenes from our memories. The coffee shop where we used to study, the park where you first kissed me, the view from your dorm room window. I told myself I was just practicing landscapes, but you were painting us. Lucas finished. I was painting us. They stood in the quiet office, surrounded by Lucas's architectural drawings and business awards, but seeing only each other. The careful distance they'd maintained over the past weeks dissolved like sugar in rain. Maya, Lucas said softly, stepping closer. I need to tell you something else. What? Noah knows. About us, I mean. About what we meant to each other. Maya's eyes widened. How much does he know? Everything that matters. That I loved you before I met his mother. That I left you when I was too young and scared to know better. That seeing you again has made me remember who I used to be underneath all the armor I built. How did he take it? Lucas's mouth curved in a small smile. He said, and I quote, So that's why you both look at each other like you're trying to solve a puzzle that's missing pieces. Maya laughed, the sound shaky with emotion. That kid doesn't miss anything. No, he doesn't. He also said something else. What? He said he thinks Amanda would like you. That she always told him the people we love before don't disappear. They become part of how we love the people who come after. Maya felt her heart crack open completely. She sounds like she was an extraordinary woman. She was. And Maya, I need you to know that what I feel for you now isn't the same as what I felt 15 years ago. It's not me trying to recapture some lost youth or pretend Amanda never happened. What is it then? Lucas cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away tears she didn't realize had fallen. It's a man who's learned the difference between passion and love, between wanting someone and choosing them every single day. It's someone who knows what loss feels like and refuses to waste a second chance. Lucas, I love you, Maya. Not the memory of you, not the idea of what we could have been. I love who you are now, the woman who sees my son's heart so clearly, who builds confidence in children like it's her personal mission, who still gets paint under her fingernails and doesn't care. I love your laugh and your stubbornness, and the way you tilt your head when you're really listening to someone. Maya felt her breath catch. I love you too. God help me. I never stopped loving you. And I'm terrified and thrilled and completely overwhelmed by getting to love you again. The space between them disappeared. Lucas kissed her with 15 years of apology and promise. Gentle but desperate, like he was trying to memorize the taste of her lips. Maya kissed him back with equal intensity, her hands fisting in his sweater, pulling him closer. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lucas rested his forehead against hers. What happens now? Maya whispered. Now we stop pretending this is just about coffee dates and careful conversations, Lucas said. Now we figure out how to build something real together. You, me, and Noah. Are you sure? Because once we cross this line, there's no going back to being just his teacher and his father. I don't want to go back, Lucas said firmly. I want to go forward. With you. Maya was about to respond when they heard footsteps on the stairs, followed by a soft knock on the office door. Dad? Noah's voice called through the wood. Is Miss Varela still here? I wanted to show her my new painting before she leaves. Lucas and Maya stepped apart, both trying to compose themselves. Lucas opened the door to find Noah in his pajamas, hair sticking up at odd angles, clutching a small canvas. Buddy, what are you doing up? It's past your bedtime. I couldn't sleep, Noah said, then looked between his father and Maya with those two perceptive eyes. Were you guys kissing? Maya felt her cheeks flame red, but Lucas surprised her by answering honestly. Yes, we were. Noah considered this information with the seriousness of a Supreme Court judge. Good, he said finally. You both looked like you needed to. Noah, Lucas started. It's okay, Dad, I'm happy about it. Look, he held up his painting, a family portrait showing 3 figures under a bright yellow sun. Lucas, tall and smiling. Maya, her hair caught in an imaginary breeze. And Noah in the middle, linking their hands together. I painted what I want our family to look like. Maya's vision blurred with tears. Noah, sweetie, I know Miss Varela isn't my mom, Noah said matter-of-factly, and I know Mom can't come back. But I think maybe families can grow, like when you add new colors to a painting and it becomes more beautiful instead of just different. Lucas knelt down to Noah's level, his voice thick with emotion. Are you sure this is what you want? Because if Miss Varela and I are together, really together, it means big changes for all of us. What kind of changes? Well, Lucas said carefully, maybe Miss Varela would come over for dinner more often. Maybe she'd help with homework sometimes or come to your school plays. Maybe eventually, if everyone felt ready, she might even move in with us. Noah's face lit up like Christmas morning. Really? She could live here? Only if that's what everyone wants, Maya said quickly, kneeling beside Lucas. And only if we all take time to make sure it feels right. Noah nodded solemnly, then threw his arms around both of them in a fierce hug. I want it, he said firmly. I want us to be a family. Over Noah's head, Maya and Lucas's eyes met, both seeing the same future reflected back. Messy and complicated and absolutely perfect. Okay then, Lucas said softly. Let's be a family. As they tucked Noah back into bed, his painting carefully placed on his nightstand where he could see it, Maya felt a peace she hadn't experienced in 15 years settling into her bones. They were going to be a family, unconventional, rebuilt from loss and second chances, but real. And that was the most beautiful masterpiece any of them could have created. The phone call came at 6:23 a.m. on a Tuesday, shattering the careful peace Maya had built around their budding family. "Maya, it's Harrison." Lucas's business partner's voice was crisp, professional, and completely unwelcome at this hour. "We need to discuss the Seattle Times article. It's already trending on social media." Maya sat up in her small apartment bed, her heart immediately racing. "What article?" "About Lucas and you. Someone took photos of you three at the farmer's market last weekend. The headline is, 'Billionaire's Secret Romance with Son's Teacher Raises Ethics Questions.' I think you should see it before." Maya hung up and grabbed her laptop with trembling fingers. The article was worse than she'd imagined. Photos of her, Lucas, and Noah buying flowers, sharing ice cream, looking like the happy family they were becoming. But the accompanying text painted a different picture entirely. Sources close to Riverside Creative Academy question whether teacher Maya Varella's relationship with student Noah Rowan's billionaire father creates an unfair advantage for the child. "It's a clear conflict of interest," says Dr. Patricia Henley, educational ethics expert. "When romantic relationships develop between parents and teachers, the professional boundaries that protect all students are compromised." Maya's phone buzzed with a text from Lucas. "Saw the article. Coming over now. Don't panic." But panic was exactly what Maya felt rising in her chest like floodwater. 20 minutes later, Lucas stood in her living room, his usually composed demeanor cracked with worry. "Maya, we can handle this. It's just media noise." "Is it?" Maya wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the morning sun streaming through her windows. "Lucas, they're questioning my professional integrity. My principal is probably reading this right now, wondering if I've been giving Noah special treatment. Have you?" The question hung between them like a blade. Maya stared at him, hurt flickering across her face. "That's not what I meant," Lucas said quickly, reaching for her. "I know you haven't. I know you're the most ethical person I've ever met. But Maya, you have to see this from the outside. We both knew this could happen. Knowing something might happen and living through it are completely different things," Maya said, stepping away from his touch. "Lucas, I could lose my job. 15 years of building my reputation, of proving that I belong in that classroom, could disappear because of a few photographs. I won't let that happen. You can't control this." The words came out sharper than Maya intended, but the fear was making her reckless. "You can't buy your way out of this one, Lucas. This is my career, my life, my professional identity on the line." Lucas ran his hands through his hair, the gesture Maya usually found endearing now making her want to scream. "So what are you saying? That we hide? That we pretend we don't love each other? I'm saying maybe we rushed into this. Maybe we let our feelings override our good judgment. Maya, don't do this. Don't let fear make decisions for us." But Maya was already spiraling, 15 years of careful professional building crumbling in her mind. What about Noah? What happens to him when his classmates start whispering that his teacher is only nice to him because she's sleeping with his father? It doesn't matter if it's true, Lucas. Perception becomes reality in situations like this, and Noah will be the one who suffers. Lucas's face went pale. "You're really going to do this, aren't you? You're going to run again." "I'm not running. I'm protecting what matters. What matters is us. What matters is the family we're building. I can't be with someone whose presence in my life destroys everything I've worked for," Maya said, the words cutting her throat as she spoke them. "I can't be with someone who makes me choose between love and my career. I would never make you choose." "You already did," Maya's voice broke. "The moment you walked back into my life, you made me choose. And I chose you, Lucas. I chose us. But now I'm facing the consequences, and I don't know if I'm strong enough to weather them." They stood in her small living room, the morning light revealing tears on both their faces. The silence stretched between them, filled with all the words they couldn't say. "So what happens now?" Lucas asked quietly. Maya closed her eyes, her heart breaking with each word. "I think you should go. I think we need some time to figure out what this means for all of us." "Maya, please." She couldn't look at him. "Just, please go." Lucas hesitated at the door, his hand on the handle. "This isn't over. Whatever you're feeling right now, whatever fear is driving this, it's not stronger than what we have." After he left, Maya sank onto her couch and allowed herself to cry. For the love she was walking away from, for the family that had felt so right, for the little boy who would wake up confused about why Miss Varela suddenly seemed distant again. Her phone rang. Noah's contact photo, A silly selfie he'd taken in her classroom filled the screen. "Miss Varela?" His voice was small, uncertain. "Dad seems really sad. Are you okay?" Maya's heart shattered completely. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just grown-up problems." "Is it because of the pictures in the newspaper, the ones where we look like a real family? How do you know about those?" "I heard Dad talking to Uncle Harrison." "Miss Varela, are people being mean to you because of us?" Maya pressed her hand to her mouth, trying to hold back a sob. "Sometimes adults make things complicated when they don't need to be. But you still love us, right? You still love Dad?" The question broke her. "Yes, Noah. I still love you both. That's why I need to make sure I can keep being your teacher without anyone questioning whether I'm being fair to all my students. But you are fair. You're the best teacher ever. Thank you, sweetheart. That means everything to me." After she hung up, Maya sat in the silence of her apartment, surrounded by the paintings she'd created over the past few weeks. Bright, hopeful scenes of markets and family dinners, and a little boy's laughter, evidence of the happiness she was now walking away from. Her laptop chimed with an email. Principal Williams wanted to see her first thing Monday morning. Maya closed her eyes and wondered if loving someone was always supposed to hurt this much. 3 blocks away, Lucas sat in his car outside Noah's school, trying to figure out how to explain to his son that sometimes love isn't enough to overcome the fear of losing everything else. And in his classroom, Noah Rowan painted angry red storms, because 8-year-olds understand heartbreak better than adults think they do. Maya stood at the back of the Riverside Creative Academy auditorium, watching parents and students file in for the annual spring art exhibition, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. It had been 3 weeks since she'd walked away from Lucas. 3 weeks since she'd seen Noah paint nothing but storm clouds and broken trees. 3 weeks since her meeting with Principal Williams, who'd been surprisingly supportive, but had asked Maya to consider how to navigate this situation professionally. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration of student creativity. Instead, it felt like Maya's professional funeral. "Miss Varela?" Noah appeared at her elbow, wearing a button-down shirt that was slightly too big and a nervous expression that made her chest ache. "Are you okay? You look like you want to run away." Maya knelt to his level, forcing a smile she didn't feel. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just a little nervous about the show." "Me too." Noah glanced around the filling auditorium. "Is Dad coming?" The question she'd been dreading. "I don't know, Noah. Maybe. I hope he does. I made something special, and I want both of you to see it." Before Maya could ask what he meant, Principal Williams called for attention. Maya took her place beside the other teachers, hyper-aware of the whispers and glances from parents who'd clearly read the newspaper article. "Welcome, families, to our annual celebration of young artists," Principal Williams began. "Tonight, our students will present their work and explain their creative process. But first, I'd like to address something." Maya felt her blood turn to ice. This was it. Public humiliation, the end of her career, everything she'd feared. Recently, there have been questions raised about the professional conduct of our staff. I want to be clear. After thorough investigation, I have found no evidence of favoritism or unethical behavior. Our teachers maintain the highest standards of professionalism, and any suggestion otherwise is unfounded. Maya's knees nearly buckled with relief, but Principal Williams wasn't finished. "However, I also want to say that teachers are human beings. They have lives, hearts, and the right to personal happiness outside these walls. What matters is how they conduct themselves in the classroom, and on that measure, Miss Varela has always exceeded expectations." Murmurs rippled through the audience. Maya felt tears threatening and forced them back. The student presentations began. Maya watched her kids explain their artwork with pride and passion, each piece a window into their young souls. But her eyes kept drifting to the entrance, hoping and dreading in equal measure. "Noah Rowan," Principal Williams called. Noah walked to the front of the auditorium carrying a large canvas covered by a sheet. He set it on the easel and faced the audience with the kind of quiet confidence that reminded Maya so much of his father. "My project is called When Love Gets Scared," Noah announced, his 8-year-old voice carrying clearly through the room. "It's about what happens when people love each other but think they have to choose between love and other important things." Maya's breath caught. In the back of the auditorium, she saw Lucas slip through the doors, his eyes immediately finding Noah on stage. Noah pulled away the sheet, revealing a triptych, 3 panels that told a story in bold, emotional strokes. The first panel showed 2 figures standing apart, separated by dark, stormy colors. The second showed a small figure in the middle, arms outstretched toward both. The third panel was the most stunning. The two figures reaching for each other across a bridge made of rainbow colors, the small figure standing beneath them with arms raised in joy. The first painting is about my dad and Miss Varela when they were scared, Noah continued, his voice steady despite the complexity of what he was sharing. They loved each other, but they thought loving each other meant bad things would happen to the things they worked hard for. Maya pressed her hand to her mouth, tears spilling freely now. The second painting is about me trying to help them see that love doesn't make other good things disappear. It makes them stronger. Lucas had moved closer, his face reflecting the same awe Maya felt. The third painting is about what I hope happens. Because I think when people really love each other, they don't have to choose between love and their dreams. They just have to be brave enough to trust that love makes everything better, not worse. Noah paused, looking directly at Maya, then at his father. Miss Varela taught me that art is about telling the truth with colors and shapes. This is my truth. I want my dad to be happy, and I want Miss Varela to be happy, and I think they make each other happy. And that's not something to be scared of. That's something to celebrate. The auditorium was completely silent. Maya felt every eye in the room on her, but all she could see was Noah's earnest face and Lucas's figure moving through the crowd toward the stage. Questions? Noah asked, as if he hadn't just delivered the most profound statement about love and courage that Maya had ever heard. Lucas reached the front of the auditorium. I have a question, he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. Yes, Mr. Rowan. Noah grinned, clearly delighted that his plan was working. What would you say to someone who was afraid that loving Miss Varela might hurt her career or make people think she wasn't a good teacher? Noah considered this with the seriousness of a Supreme Court judge. I'd say that Miss Varela is the best teacher in the world, and anyone who spends 5 minutes in her classroom knows that. I'd say that love doesn't make people worse at their jobs, it makes them better. And I'd say that if people are going to judge Miss Varela for who she loves instead of how amazing she is at teaching, then those people don't understand what really matters. Lucas nodded solemnly. And what would you say to someone who was afraid that being with Mr. Rowan might compromise her ability to be fair to all her students? I'd say that Miss Varela has always been fair to everyone, even before she loved Dad again. I'd say that loving someone doesn't change who you are inside. It just makes you braver about showing it. Maya found herself walking toward the stage, drawn by the wisdom of this remarkable child and the love in Lucas's eyes. And what? Maya called out, her voice shaking but determined. Would you say to someone who was afraid that choosing love meant being weak? Noah's face lit up like the sun. I'd say that choosing love is the bravest thing anyone can do. And I'd say that some families are made in unexpected ways, but that doesn't make them less real. Maya reached the stage, tears streaming down her face. Lucas met her there, and without caring about the audience or the whispers or anything except the truth Noah had painted in brilliant colors, Maya took Lucas's hands. I'm sorry, she whispered. I was so scared of losing everything that I almost lost the most important thing. We both were, Lucas said softly, but we have a pretty wise teacher helping us figure it out. The wisest, Maya agreed, looking at Noah, who was practically glowing with pride. So, Noah said loudly enough for the entire auditorium to hear, does this mean we're going to be a family for real now? Lucas looked at Maya, his eyes asking the question his voice couldn't. Yes, Maya said, her voice stronger now, filled with the certainty that came from finally choosing courage over fear. We're going to be a family for real. The auditorium erupted in applause. Whether for Noah's artwork or the love story they'd all witnessed, Maya couldn't tell. But as Lucas kissed her in front of 200 people and Noah threw his arms around both of them, she realized it didn't matter. Some love stories end with grand gestures. Others end with an 8-year-old boy teaching 2 grown-ups that courage looks like choosing love even when it's scary. Especially when it's scary. 2 years later, the colors of forever. Maya Rowan stood in the kitchen of their Queen Anne home, watching through the window as her husband helped their 10-year-old son hang a tire swing from the old oak tree. Their son. The adoption papers had been finalized 6 months ago, but Maya still felt a flutter of joy every time she thought those words. Noah had asked for it himself, standing in the judge's chambers with paint-stained fingers and absolute certainty, explaining that families weren't just about blood. They were about choice, and he chose Maya as his mom. Higher, Dad, Noah called out, his voice carrying the confidence of a child who knew he was loved completely. I want to be able to see the whole neighborhood from up there. Lucas laughed, the sound rich and unguarded in a way that still made Maya's heart skip. Any higher and you'll be able to see Canada. Even better, Noah grinned, then caught sight of Maya in the window. Mom, come see how awesome this is. Mom, 2 years later, and the word still made her throat tight with happiness. Maya walked outside, her bare feet finding the warm grass, and slipped her arms around Lucas from behind. He leaned back into her embrace, solid and real, and home. Remember when you thought love was a risk? She murmured against his shoulder. I remember being an idiot, Lucas replied, covering her hands with his. Good thing I married someone smarter than me. Good thing you had a son wise enough to paint sense into both of us. They watched Noah test the swing, his laughter bright against the Seattle afternoon. The backyard was scattered with evidence of their life together. Art supplies on the picnic table, a half-finished sculpture Noah was creating from recycled materials, the herb garden Maya had planted where she grew the cilantro Lucas put in everything. Maya? Lucas turned in her arms, his expression suddenly serious. Do you ever regret it? Leaving the public school system to start the studio? Maya smiled, thinking of the converted warehouse space downtown where she now taught private art classes to children and adults. Varela Creative Studio had been Lucas's wedding gift to her. Not just the financial backing, but the encouragement to pursue her dreams without compromise. She taught kids like Noah who saw the world in colors and textures, and adults who'd forgotten they had creativity inside them waiting to bloom. Never, she said firmly. I get to teach art to people who choose to be there. I get to help children discover their voices and watch grown-ups remember what joy feels like. Plus, she grinned, I get to come home to my family every night instead of grading papers until midnight. No more ethics committees questioning your relationship choices? No more ethics committees, Maya confirmed. Just me, my paints, and students who call me Miss Maya, and don't care that I'm married to a billionaire biotech entrepreneur. Lucas kissed her forehead. Speaking of which, Harrison called earlier. The pediatric cancer research we're funding just got FDA approval for the next phase of trials. Maya felt her heart squeeze with pride. Lucas had redirected a significant portion of his company's resources toward children's medical research after Amanda's death, turning his grief into hope for other families. It was one of the many ways he'd grown from the scared young man who'd once run from love into someone who ran toward purpose. Amanda would be proud, Maya said softly. I think she would be, Lucas agreed. I think she'd be happy that Noah has someone who loves him the way you do, that we all found our way to something beautiful. Dad, Mom, look! Noah called from the swing, pumping his legs to go higher. I can see the art studio from here and the school and everything. Maya and Lucas watched their son soar through the air, fearless and joyful, and Maya thought about the drawing that had started it all, Noah's innocent sketch of his teacher, done with the kind of love that recognized love, even when the adults were too scared to see it. You know what I realized? Maya said, settling onto the porch steps and pulling Lucas down beside her. What's that? That night in the conference room when you said you'd never stopped loving me. I thought that was the most romantic thing anyone had ever said to me. And now? Maya gestured toward Noah, who was now trying to make the swing go in circles, his delighted laughter echoing off the house. Now I know the most romantic thing was Noah drawing my face before he even knew our story. It was an 8-year-old boy seeing what we were too afraid to see. That love doesn't diminish when you share it. It multiplies. Lucas took her hand, his thumb tracing the simple gold band she wore. So what's the most romantic thing now? Maya leaned against his shoulder, watching their son discover new ways to fly. This, right here. Sunday afternoon with paint under my fingernails, your hair sticking up from the humidity, and Noah being absolutely, completely himself. This ordinary, extraordinary life we built together, even though it's not the life any of us planned 15 years ago, especially because it's not the life we planned. The best art happens when you stop trying to control the outcome and trust the process. As if summoned by their conversation, Noah jumped off the swing and ran toward them, grass stains on his knees and pure joy on his face. Mom, Dad, can we have a family art night tonight? I want to paint our new swing, and I think you should both paint what makes you happiest. Maya and Lucas exchanged a look, the kind of wordless communication that came from 2 years of choosing each other every single day. What would you paint? Lucas asked Maya. Maya looked at her husband's face, relaxed and content in the golden afternoon light. At Noah, who was already planning his artistic vision with the intensity of a young Picasso. At the house that had become a home filled with laughter and paint fumes and the kind of love that felt both brand new and ancient. I'd paint this exact moment, she said, This feeling of being exactly where I belong. And you? She asked Lucas. Lucas smiled, the expression soft and wondering, as if he still couldn't quite believe his good fortune. I'd paint the moment I realized that the best equations aren't solved with numbers. They're solved with courage, forgiveness, and the willingness to let an 8-year-old boy teach you what love really looks like. Noah clapped his hands together. Perfect, and I'm going to paint all of us painting, so we can remember this forever and ever. As they headed inside to gather art supplies, Maya caught her reflection in the living room mirror, paint-stained t-shirt, hair escaping from its ponytail, smile lines deeper than they'd been 2 years ago. She looked like a woman who'd stopped trying to be perfect and started trying to be real. She looked like someone who'd finally learned that the most beautiful masterpieces were painted with love, courage, and the willingness to let your colors bleed outside the lines. Outside, the tire swing moved gently in the breeze, as if blessing this family that had found each other through a child's drawing and chosen each other through everything that came after. Love, Maya thought, really was just friendship painted in deeper colors, and theirs were the most vibrant hues she'd ever seen. Would you have been brave enough to paint your love story in public the way Noah did? What would you have done if you were Maya? Chosen safety or chosen love? What did this story teach you about second chances? About the courage it takes to love someone completely? About the way children can see truths that adults miss? Your participation in the channel is very important. Please leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below letting us know what you thought. Your feedback and support mean a lot to us. Stay tuned for more exciting stories.